Something just slipped out of a gym that was never meant to leave the walls. And boxing fans instantly knew this wasn't regular sparring chatter. This wasn't shadowboxing. This wasn't pad work. This was the kind of rumor that makes trainers go quiet, fighters stop tweeting, and insiders suddenly lose service. According to whispers lighting up the boxing underground, Shakur Stevenson has allegedly been locking horns with Terence Crawford. Yes, that Terence Crawford, while gearing up for a collision course with Teofimo Lopez. Let that marinate. A pound for pound. Surgeons sharpening blades with a future Hall of Famer behind closed doors, while the rest of the world thinks training camp is business as usual. This isn't preparation. This is weaponization. The kind that turns a fight into a chess match played at knife speed. Fans didn't just react, they leaned in like they'd overheard classified coordinates. Social media went DEFCON 1, memes exploded, timelines screamed. People compared the energy to Rocky training with Apollo Creed before the rematch. Except this time, the gym door is locked and the film is allegedly burning. This makes the Kardashians look boring. Because of this leak is even half true. Teofimo isn't just fighting Shakur, he's fighting a blueprint built by Bud himself. And that changes everything. The rumor didn't come from a press conference or a sanctioned media day. It didn't arrive with glossy photos or carefully worded quotes. It leaked the way the most dangerous boxing stories always do, through whispers, gym chatter, and sudden changes in behavior that didn't quite add up. 1 minute, everything was quiet. The next minute, insiders were talking like they'd just seen something they weren't supposed to see. According to boxing circles lighting up behind the scenes, Shakur Stevenson wasn't just sharpening tools for Teofimo Lopez. He was allegedly borrowing them straight from Terence Crawford's workshop, and that's where the temperature changed. Because sparring Terence Crawford isn't getting work. It's not routine. It's not something you casually throw into a camp like road work or mitts. That's elite-level warfare prep. That's inviting a pound-for-pound tactician into your space and asking him to stress test every weakness you don't want the public to know about. If true, this wasn't training, it was reconnaissance. Fans immediately started asking how this even made sense. Shakur, the defensive virtuoso. Crawford, the switch-hitting chess grandmaster. Teofimo, the explosive chaos engine waiting on the other side of the contract. On paper, this triangle looks less like sparring partners and more like a Netflix plot twist nobody saw coming. And the more people thought about it, the more uncomfortable it felt for Team Lopez. Because here's the unspoken rule of boxing camps. You don't bring in someone who can replace your opponent mentally. You bring in styles that mimic. You bring in looks that imitate. You don't bring in a Hall of Fame brain unless you're trying to steal its blueprints. Online reaction didn't wait for confirmation. Boxing Twitter went straight into detective mode. People started connecting dots: old interviews, mutual respect comments, shared trainers, overlapping gym schedules. Screenshots flew. Training timelines were dissected like forensic evidence. Suddenly, what once felt impossible started feeling plausible. Sarcasm flooded the conversation. "Oh, just casually sparing Bud," one post joked. "No big deal. Just borrowing the final boss before the main quest." Another wrote, "This isn't camp. This is DLC." Fans weren't laughing because it was funny. They were laughing because it was terrifying. The first reactions weren't outrage, they were disbelief. Even seasoned boxing heads paused. Because if Shakur really brought Crawford into camp, that signals something very specific: respect for Teofimo's danger level. This wasn't overconfidence. This wasn't ego. This was acknowledgement that Lopez brings chaos. You don't neutralize with finesse alone. What made the leak hit harder was the silence from the usual loud mouths. No immediate denial, no joking dismissal. No Instagram story laughing it off. And in boxing culture, silence is rarely accidental. Silence is strategy. Commentators began framing it as psychological warfare, not against Teofimo directly, but against the narrative. The idea that Shakur is too slick or too safe for big fights doesn't survive if he's willingly trading rounds with Crawford. That reframes everything. He paints him not as a runner, but as a surgeon sharpening his scalpel on another surgeon. Meanwhile, Teofimo fans didn't take it lightly. Some dismissed it as hype. Others accused Team Shakur of leaking the rumor intentionally to mess with Lopez's head. Because let's be honest, if you wanted to rattle an explosive fighter, you'd let him believe his opponent is downloading data from one of the smartest minds in the sport. The tension wasn't just competitive, it was cultural. Crawford represents discipline, patience, and adaptability. Shakur already operates on those frequencies. Combine the two, and suddenly Teofimo's unpredictability isn't a weapon, it's a variable to be solved. Boxing insiders started whispering about the implications. If true, this could mean Shakur's camp is preparing for more than just Teofimo's power. They're preparing for adjustments, for mid-round pivots, for chaos containment. That's not normal sparring. Logic, that's championship paranoia. And paranoia wins fights. The controversy wasn't that Shakur might spar Crawford. It was why. Because when elite fighters cross camps like this, it's rarely for conditioning. It's for answers. And the idea that Bud might be providing those answers had fans treating this like a classified leak instead of gym gossip. Old narratives cracked under the pressure. The Shakur is boring crowd suddenly went quiet. The Teofimo will overwhelm him take started sounding less confident. Even neutral observers admitted the rumor alone shifted the balance of anticipation. Because boxing is as much about belief as it is about punches, and belief was wobbling. The first phase of the story wasn't about proof, it was about implication. The possibility alone was enough to send shockwaves through the sport. Because if Shakur is indeed sharpening his tools against Crawford, then this fight isn't being treated like entertainment, it's being treated like a legacy exam by the end of the day. One thing was clear, whether the rumor was confirmed or not. The damage or advantage was already done. The idea had been planted. The narrative had shifted. And Teofimo Lopez was no longer facing just Shakur Stevenson in the public imagination. He was facing a Shakur Stevenson allegedly armed with Terrence Crawford's insight, and that's a very different problem. Once the rumor took its first lap around boxing Twitter, it stopped being a whisper and started behaving like a wildfire with Wi-Fi. The conversation didn't just grow, fractured, multiplied, and evolved into something bigger than sparring. This was no longer about rounds in a gym. This was about power, psychology, and whether Teofimo Lopez had just unknowingly stepped into a trap layered with Nobel Prize-level boxing IQ. Reaction channels didn't hesitate. Every podcaster with a mic suddenly became an inside source. Some claimed they'd heard similar murmurs weeks earlier. Others said they were told to keep quiet until contracts were signed. And a few went full dramatic narrator, acting like this was the boxing equivalent of discovering Batman trained with Superman before fighting the Joker. Ridiculous. Yes, entertaining. Absolutely, memes did what memes always do, translate fear into humor. Shakur's face photoshopped next to Crawford's like a video game tag team. Teofimo edited into a boss fight with 2 health bars. One viral post joked, "This isn't sparring, this is a firmware update." Another read, "Shakur didn't just study for the test, he hired the teacher." These weren't just jokes. They were acknowledgments that the energy had shifted. Even retired fighters chimed in without chiming in. Vague tweets about levels and preparation flooded timelines. Nobody named names, but nobody needed to. When boxers talk in riddles, the subtext is usually louder than a knockout. Fans treated every emoji like gospel, dissecting likes and retweets like they were punch stats. Teofimo supporters pushed back hard. They reminded everyone that sparring doesn't equal success, that Crawford isn't Lopez, and that you can't replicate raw explosiveness with technical brilliance. And they weren't wrong. Teofimo fights like a thunderstorm, violent, sudden, and unpredictable. But here's the problem. Storms are easier to track when you know the weather patterns. That's where the panic crept in. Because if Shakur was indeed sparring Crawford, it suggested he wasn't planning to outfight Teofimo. He was planning to outthink him. And that idea unsettled people. Boxing fans love chaos until chaos meets calculation. Then suddenly, everyone wants to know who's holding the remote. The debate exploded into style breakdowns. Analysts argued whether Crawford's adaptability could help Shakur prepare for Teofimo's mid-fight mood swings. Others said Shakur already possesses elite ring IQ and that Crawford's involvement would only amplify his patience to uncomfortable levels. The phrase boring masterclass started trending, usually followed by until someone gets stopped. Pop culture analogies went nuclear. Fans compared it to chess players secretly training with grandmasters before a title match. Others said it felt like a Marvel crossover nobody asked for but everyone needed. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. This fight just went from pay-per-view to pay attention. What really escalated things was the rumor that the sparring wasn't casual. According to online chatter, these weren't light rounds. These were high-level, problem-solving exchanges, the kind that leave both fighters quieter than usual afterward. Again, unconfirmed. Again, devastating to the imagination. Boxing gyms are temples of secrecy, and leaks like this don't happen unless someone wants them to. That's what made the situation feel strategic. Some fans believed Team Shakur let this slip intentionally to mess with Teofimo's mental preparation. Others thought it was accidental, overheard by the wrong ears. Either way, the effect was the same. Psychological pressure, applied long before fight night. Teofimo's single quotes S name started trending in conversations he didn't initiate. His past fights were reanalyzed through the lens of how would Crawford read this. Moments of brilliance were praised, but moments of recklessness were magnified. Suddenly, old clips weren't highlights, they were case studies, and Shakur. He stayed quiet. No bragging, no denial, no cryptic captions, just silence. And silence in boxing is never empty, it's loaded. Fans interpreted it as confidence, or focus, or satisfaction. Nobody knew, but everyone felt it. The boxing world split down the middle. One side saw genius preparation. The other saw overthinking. But both sides agreed on one thing. This rumor alone had transformed the fight. The anticipation wasn't just about who would win it, was about how prepared each man truly was. Promoters loved it. Fighters pretended not to notice. Analysts milked it, and fans ate every second of it like a season finale, because this wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a narrative collision. Discipline versus dynamite. Calculation versus chaos. And somewhere in a locked gym, according to whispers, two of the sharpest minds in boxing were allegedly trading answers the rest of the division wasn't invited to hear. Whether true or not, the damage or advantage was already embedded. And now everyone was waiting for the aftermath, when the noise finally settled into a low, constant hum. The boxing world realized something important had already happened, regardless of whether the sparring rumor ever gets confirmed. The fight had changed before a single bell rang. Not on paper, not in contracts, but in perception. And perception, in boxing, hits harder than a left hook you never see coming. Shakur Stevenson was no longer being discussed as just the slick technician with elite footwork and surgical defense. He was now being framed as a fighter willing to walk into the lab with one of the most dangerous problem solvers of this era and invite chaos on purpose. That alone shifted how fans talked about him. The boring label started evaporating. The word prepared replaced it. And in boxing, preparation is terrifying. Teofimo Lopez felt the ripple whether he acknowledged it or not. Suddenly, the conversation around him wasn't just about explosiveness and timing, it was about discipline under pressure. Could he stay patient if the fight slowed to a crawl? Could he resist the urge to force moments when nothing was there? Could he handle a fighter who might already know how he reacts when Plan A stops working? These weren't new questions, but now they were louder. The aftermath of the rumor became psychological warfare by default. Fans started projecting outcomes weeks in advance. Every training clip from either camp was analyzed like it was a crime scene. A relaxed smile from Shakur meant confidence. A hard sparring video from Teofimo meant urgency. Everything meant something, because the narrative had primed the audience to believe this fight would be decided by minds as much as fists. Industry insiders began speaking in that careful, half-coded language they use when they don't want to be quoted but still want to be heard. Words like serious camp, next-level preparation, and chess match started popping up in interviews that weren't even about this fight. The implication was clear. Whatever Shakur was doing, it wasn't normal, and normal doesn't win legacy fights. The reputational impact was immediate. Shakur gained credibility with skeptics who once doubted his willingness to engage at the highest level. Teofimo, meanwhile, found himself carrying the burden of expectation. Power punchers are loved until they're outthought, and the fear creeping into the conversation wasn't about whether Teofimo could hurt Shakur, it was whether he'd get the chance. Relationships across the boxing landscape subtly shifted. Fighters publicly aligned with either side, praising styles that conveniently matched their preference. Trainers debated philosophies without naming names. Even fans started choosing camps not just based on loyalty, but on ideology. Do you believe? Chaos breaks discipline, or does discipline suffocate chaos? That's when it became clear this wasn't just a fight. It was a referendum. The rumor also exposed something boxing rarely admits out loud. Preparation scares people more than trash talk. Anyone can talk. Not everyone is willing to invite elite minds into their camp and risk being exposed. If the Crawford sparring truly happened, it signaled a confidence bordering on arrogance or a seriousness bordering on obsession. Either way, it suggested Shakur wasn't leaving this fight to chance, and Teofimo. The narrative didn't turn against him, sharpened him. Fans started viewing him less as the wild card and more as the test, the measuring stick. The storm Shakur was allegedly preparing for. That's pressure too. Because when you're framed as the chaos factor, you're expected to deliver chaos. Anything less feels like underperformance. As fight night approached, in the public imagination, the rumor lingered like a ghost in the room. Commentators referenced it without confirming it. Analysts danced around it while clearly factoring it into predictions. It became one of those unspoken elements everyone acknowledges, but nobody pins down. And those are often the most powerful. Legacy talk entered the chat. For Shakur, this fight started to feel like a declaration and announcement that he's not just here to win rounds, but to dominate eras. For Teofimo, it felt like a crossroads moment. It's a chance to prove that raw brilliance still has a place in a sport increasingly obsessed with data, discipline, and control. The aftermath wasn't explosive. It was surgical. The kind that reshapes expectations quietly, then reveals its impact all at once under the lights. Because by the time these two finally meet, the audience won't just be watching punches. They'll be watching preparation collide with unpredictability, patience clash with instinct, and rumor crystallize into reality. And that's the dangerous part, because once the bell rings, there's no hiding behind whispers, no leaning on implication, no sparring myths to shield you. Whatever advantage exists, surreal or imagined, has to show up in real time. And if it does, this fight won't just be remembered for who won. It'll be remembered for how early the story started writing itself. Whether the Crawford sparring happened exactly as rumored or not almost stops mattering. Now, the idea alone has altered the landscape. It's changed how fans talk, how analysts predict, and how pressure is distributed. And that's the ultimate power move. Because in boxing, sometimes the most dangerous punch is the one thrown long before. Fight night straight into the mind. And this is exactly why boxing is never just about what happens under the lights. Because sometimes the real fight starts long before the gloves are taped. One rumor, one leak. One quiet gym door that maybe stayed closed a little too tight. And suddenly the entire division is leaning forward like they just heard something they weren't supposed to hear. If this story made you rethink this fight, even a little bit, then congratulations, you're already locked in. Now I need to hear from you. If this sparring really happened, does it make Shakur a genius playing chess at light speed? Or is this overthinking before stepping into chaos? And on the flip side, does Teofimo thrive when the plan is too perfect to survive first contact? Drop your take in the comments, because boxing fans don't just watch fights, we argue them into existence. And don't forget to smash that like button like it owes you money, because every click tells the algorithm you're here for real breakdowns, not lazy hot takes and recycled headlines. Hit subscribe while you're at it, because camps don't leak every day, but when they do, we're already inside the conversation. Turn on notifications too, because the moment another sparring story slips, another insider whispers too loud, or another narrative starts cracking at the seams. You'll want to catch it early, not hear about it after the damage is done, because in this sport, preparation is power. Silence is strategy. And rumors don't spread unless someone lets them. Welcome to Punch Press, where boxing politics get exposed. Fight myths get dissected, and nothing that happens inside camp ever stays there for long.